Hey YouTube, I'm Ross Magas. This is Not Real Life, and today I'd like to talk to you guys about Vampire Survivors. Now, this is a small little game, and just as a note, some minor spoilers are going to be in this footage. This is me just playing some, I guess, what I would call like an average run. I've unlocked quite a bit, but not everything, and I guess spoiler alert for characters, abilities, evolutions, stuff like that. But we're gonna get to that in just a sec. But the idea of Vampire Survivors is actually a pretty simple idea, and it's kind of interesting because on its head, I think if someone just told it to you like on paper, what is Vampire Survivors? Well, it's a game where you can't attack by pressing any buttons. The game auto attacks for you, and all you can do is kind of move around, and enemies come to you. I'll admit, like, initially when I heard about this, I didn't think it was that great, but like and shout out to the devs, and I actually need to double check who they are. The developers are forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, Poncle Limited, Poncle Limited, and they have made a brilliant game. It's like, there's no two ways about it. This game is actually pretty freaking fantastic. But if you read the title, aside from just looking at the picture, you're probably wondering why I'm going to warn you about it later. But before that, let's get a little bit more into what the game is like. So, essentially, it starts out like any game. You just turn it on. And the gameplay footage you're going to see here in the background is not indicative of a brand new game. This is me, and I've been playing it for, I don't know what it says, like 90 hours or 100 hours. I forget what it says. But you start out with very limited characters and very limited ability, and the speed you're watching the gameplay at is actually not something you'll get until you unlock it later. But what happens is you pick a person, they have an ability, you use that ability to kill enemies as they come at you in waves, essentially. And eventually, you'll kill enough enemies, you get experience by picking up these little gems, and you'll get more abilities as you progress. Some of these are passive, some of these are attack abilities, and these are designated by the two different rows you see in the top left corner. Essentially, what makes this game brilliant is that it is so simple. It's not easy. It is simple, but it's not easy. It gets easier to a point, and then they give you some more difficulty later that makes it even harder, so it's not really easy. But the wonderful thing about this game is it really can get you into the flow state immediately. Anybody can pick up this game and they'll get right into it. And I do want to commend Ponko for putting this game on. I just got it on PlayStation, as you can see from my footage earlier, that this game is not expensive. I think it's like $5 at the most, and I can't remember if it was a PS Plus game or not, which might have been one that I got it. I was like, yeah, why not? I've heard people talk about this game. And so us PlayStation players are finally getting it. And this is where the game is at its best and also at its worst. The game flow is so easy to achieve because it's so simple. You don't have to fight with the controls. Anyone can figure them out just by playing a little bit, or they at least get over the hump of having to combat the controller to get the player expression they want. Then they just have to learn what the things in the game are. And this is the brilliance of Ponko's design. So by eliminating any ability besides movement, and everything else is stat determined, and you can tell the difference between the different characters, and the different abilities do different things, and those in turn can also be augmented. So most of the time you play this game will actually not be spent on the learning curve of X does this, B does that, A does whatever, it's, forget all that, You move left, he moves left, you move right, they move right, up, down, exactly what you think. And then you just have to see what the abilities do. And then now you're in what used to be called the meta space, I think. Maybe it was just an FGC term. But like the meta game of you actually playing against the game at this point. You've the barrier of entry is very low and the skill ceiling is very high. So there's a lot of place for you to figure out what type of moves you like, what kind of abilities you like, which characters do what, and how they perform versus other characters, and just enjoying the flow of the game. And slowly they add things, and they have secrets, like old school type secrets. Eventually you can even unlock like enter cheat code kind of secrets, and just like really cryptic, like, hey, there might be something up there. And you're like, up where? Up there, go find it. And stuff like that. And this compiled with the ability to get into that flow state is what really makes this game amazing. And while in the beginning the games will be harder because you haven't learned anything yet and you don't know anything, and your abilities are not, you don't know what combines with what to get better weapons, to get better damage output, save your life, what heals, what doesn't, and the more you play, the more you get. And honestly, as you get further, the characters tend to get stronger. So that's pretty cool. I love the Castlevania inspiration. I mean, it's pretty clear, but the music on top of that is really amazing. The weapons do really cool stuff. And for a game where you can't control what they do, it's really interesting to see that they're still able to get like weapon feel down, So like the first character, I don't remember his name, but he has a whip, right? It sits back and forth just in front of him, to the left to the right. And this contrast, and you actually see the character on screen with another character who shoots like a little fireball, and then another character who shoots like it's like a diamond, I think. The ability is called Rune Tracer, but it like bounces around and hits a bunch of enemies. Or the old guy has garlic, and garlic stinks, so it has an aura around him, and it kills enemies because garlic also purifies evil. That kind of stuff. And that's where a lot of the homage to Castlevania comes in too. Another thing that's really amazing about this game is the soundtrack is pretty good. Like, just play any character. Eventually you'll be able to pick between a whole bunch of soundtracks. Special characters have special soundtracks, and they're homages to other characters. And eventually, if you get a lot, and you might think, why not? The DLC is so cheap too. You might get that too, and then find out that they have homages to Contra, Among Us. I don't even know what the other one is, but it's, for a game that's so simple, quote unquote, it is so deep at the same time. And I'm glowing about this thing, right? Like, you can hear me. I'm just saying everything about it is so cool. It's so good to get into. It's got a great gameplay loop. Why am I gonna warn you? Right? Well, it is in fact that same feature that I think is dangerous. This is a phenomena I've experienced recently. There aren't very many games that I can think of that did this. The other one was Power Wash Simulator. But this game feels like it's just one more game. It's that kind of game, just one more game. But as you start to get into it, one more game is at least half an hour. All right? And before you know it, it's been 3, 4, 5 games, and that's a few hours, right? So it's highly addictive, and it's so good to play. So that is my warning. Be careful if you're that kind of person. You love that gameplay loop, or maybe that sounds perfect for you, because like I could ostensibly see someone playing this forever. They'll unlock everything, and it seems like they're pretty good at patching the game too. So whenever there's like a bug, or maybe they think something should be fixed, they added more DLC characters, right, with the DLCs I mentioned already, which are also cheap, so you'll probably buy those too. And you'll just be like, I can't think of any other game that is more bang for your buck than this game, right? For like under $10 or so, that's US dollars, you're gonna get the game, all the DLC, and potentially endless playtime. I can't think of any game that has it's that cheap and you can play that much, and it is amazing to play. All right, so, but it is maybe too amazing. I don't know what the word for it is, but you'll end up ignoring other games because you're already so in the groove of that flow state, and it's so easy to jump in and get in there because the more you know, the more weapons you know, the more weapons you've unlocked, the more you can wreak havoc on enemies. And then as you get further, you might unlock some additional difficulty things. There's an adventure mode. Like, your screen is going to look like mine at the beginning, but eventually you'll be able to break past the 30-minute mark on some levels. I'm not going to explain how that's done, but some levels have shorter ones, but that's not the point. Just be careful. I guess if you know you have an addictive personality, maybe you don't want to play that. Maybe you do, but this is one of, I guess, 2 games that I can think of that I love. I think it's amazing. I can't think of any way to improve upon it. The value proposition is so good, but I'm also hesitant to recommend it just because I know how I feel sometimes when I'm playing it. And I love it. I like playing it. I've played it a lot, and I lose a lot of time to it when I could be playing other games and working on, hell, these videos, right? And I'm not going to say don't buy it, but I'm going to say think twice, okay, before you get into it, especially if you know you're that kind of player. You're the kind of player who has played, I don't know, Doom 2016 a million times over because you love the flow and you know every in and out. You know how to dodge just right, do all this cool stuff. You played Monster Hunter for how many thousand hours? You've played Power Wash Simulator, you know, which I did too, and that was another one just like this. It's not difficult, it's easy to understand, and you get into the zen state that game puts you into, and before you know it, you're like, where'd the time go? Katamari, you know, it's one of these games. So you gotta watch out for some of these games, but at the same time, they're like amazing. And while not all the games I listed would have that same like, hey, watch out for this, but it's a gameplay first game. And yes, there's an homage to Castlevania and like old school games and the feel and look, even though no old school system could probably run this game. But it really captures the sense of nostalgia, I guess you could say, for the game or the old games, while also being its own completely different thing. Like, yes, it's inspired by Castlevania. I mean, the first character has a whip, and Castlevania, they have whips, right? So, but it's such an entirely different experience, and I'm sure someone can play Castlevania like this, but not most people, I would hazard. And I think actually this is probably a lot easier to get into that zone where you can be that way, the flow state. But either way, Vampire Survivors is a pretty amazing game. I mean, I would give it 2 thumbs up, 10 out of 10, like, you know, whatever you want to say. It set out completely to achieve what it wants to achieve. It has a great soundtrack. It has, limited to no story, but that's clearly not really the point of the game. I mean, there is a story, but it's not a huge portion of it. It's got things to make you investigate the game further. You can look it up online. People have community post threads, Reddit posts all about what they're talking about and how to get this, how to unlock that. I can't find this. Help me out with that. I can't find this character. I can't unlock this. It's deep. So if you want to get in there deep, this is definitely a game that you can get on the cheap. It's on everything as far as I can tell. You can get it on your phone, PC. I think it's on Switch now. So honestly, it's pretty freaking cool. However, just be ready that you might have a hard time putting the game down, which I guess is normally a good thing, but it might be too much of a good thing. Either way, I'm Ross Magas. I hope you enjoyed this review / warning for Vampire Survivors. And I'm going to speed up the rest of this footage just so you can see how I played. I actually didn't finish this round because I just needed B-roll for this, and I didn't know how long I was going to talk for. So we're going to speed this up just to make it fit, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh yeah, and before I forget, hey, please do that YouTube CYA stuff, you know? Oh no, CTA stuff. You know, hit that like, subscribe. Or, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to tell you to do that. Please, if you enjoyed this, consider hitting that like, consider hitting that subscribe, and helping me make this for you guys more often. Well, I'm Ross Magas. This is Not Real Life. And now, I'll see you next time.